Slow and steady is A-okay. Welcome to episode 25 of the Knitted by Whitney podcast. I have quite a bit to share with you today. However, nothing is finished, and that's okay. I am not somebody who is a fast maker. I am also currently working on a lot of different whips. I've had quite a few problems with those whips, and I wanted to do a podcast anyway because I have a lot to talk about. I have a lot to share with these projects, and the projects don't have to be finished for me to have something to tell you about them. So we're going to get into quite a few whips today. One yarn to share in my stash spotlight. No upcoming plans at the moment. And maybe a book review? I think I might have a book review. I'm not quite sure. But by the time I get to the end of the episode, I'll probably know. So let's get into all of the things that I have to share with you today. And I thought I would go through my whips starting chronologically of when I started them, because I recently did a fun little reel that I will put right here on the screen, and it was really fun to show off all of my different whips in all of their various states of non-completion, their various states of progress, and I thought it would be fun to give a little overview of how my whips are going right now. So starting with my oldest whip on the list, this is a whip that's currently in hibernation. This is my, once I get it all untwisted, Arcuate vest, which I mistakenly called it the Arcuate vest the last time I shared it on the podcast. I've since learned that it is pronounced Arcuate, so I do apologize for mispronouncing it earlier. This is a pattern by Charissa, who is a new to me designer. I've been following her for maybe a year or so, and I am actually testing one of the larger sizes for her. The pattern is already out, but I was chatting with her, and she said that she actually didn't have many people testing the larger sizes, so she offered to exchange the pattern to me for some feedback. So I'm currently working on this pattern, and I am pretty sure, am I making size 6 or size 7? I am not sure. I will put it on the screen. But this is a bottom-up vest, and it is looking pretty darn good, albeit very short, because this is made with some very rustic wool. This is made using some Sadness Garn Tove, which is 100% Norsk ull, which I am assuming means Norwegian wool. And it is not the softest yarn, and it is definitely not a yarn that I enjoy working on in hot weather. Here in Nova Scotia, not only do we get hot summers, we also get very humid summers. So it is not out of the ordinary for us to have 80, 90, even 100% humidity. And working on really rustic, non-superwash wool, there's actually the potential for this to felt just from the heat and the humidity and the friction of my hands holding the yarn. So this project is currently in hibernation. However, I would really love to finish this in the fall because I know I would get some really beautiful fall photos with this, because this is just a gorgeous like brown crunchy leaf color, and I really love that. And I can see that this is going to go with a lot of my clothing. So there is whip number 1, currently in hibernation. The next whip that I have to share is my romance cardigan, which still has quite a ways to go, but I have a sleeve since the last time I showed this on the podcast. I think the last time I showed it, there might have been the beginnings of a sleeve. I think I might have just past the sleeve cap. So this is a set-in sleeve, which means that you knit your sleeve cap first down to about here, and then you start doing it in the round all the way down. Now, I'm actually going to frog this sleeve. I'm not happy with it. The pattern itself does 2 sleeve options. There is a balloon sleeve, which is what I did for my wedding cardigan version, and then there's also a straight sleeve. But there is not a tapered sleeve option, which is what I want with this cardigan. Partly I want a tapered sleeve because I don't have a lot of yarn to play around with, but also that's the style that I would like for this cardigan. I have gone down a size so that I can get a very neutral eased, negative eased fit, and I want that on the sleeves as well. I don't want a really close fitting body and then a loose baggy sleeve. So as you can tell by all these colorful stitch markers going up the sleeve, I have done quite a few decreases, but I have not done enough decreases because by the time I get to the arm, the lower part of the arm, which, this is acrylic, so it won't really block very far. I've started my cuff probably about here, and it's still too gapey. I don't like how much fabric is still left over. Even starting to do the ribbed cuff, it's still giving me too much fabric. So I need to go back, and I was waiting until I recorded this podcast in order to do that, because I was doing my decreases every 6th row, or maybe it was every 7th. And that worked great for up here, but by the time I get to probably the elbow, that's not really good anymore. So I kind of wanted to start doing my decreases even more rapidly so that I don't have too tight of an upper arm, because I do have large biceps, but I don't want to have a loose forearm. So this needs to be taken back probably, let's get this hanging where I think it'll be, because that's right where my shoulder line is. And if I'm feeling along where I have excess fabric, it's down to probably here. So I think I want to go all the way back to this orange stitch marker, all the way up here, and start doing more rapid decreases from there. So that will give me a much better fit for the sleeve, and it'll also make sure that I don't use quite as much yarn as I'm currently using, because my hope is I can get this whole sleeve out of this one skein of yarn that I had. I did, however, find a bit more yarn. I was trying to be very strategic about how much yarn I was using, because I know I don't have a lot to play with. The length of the cardigan is longer than my wedding cardigan. It's kind of hard to see, but I'll show a photo right here. It's not quite as long as I would like it to be. I would like maybe another 2 inches of stockinette and then about a 2 to 3 inch ribbed bottom. So I need some more yarn for the length of the body, and I need yarn to do the ribbed collar. I don't think I'm going to have enough yarn to do the scalloped crocheted edging, which is okay. I don't know if I really need that for this particular version of the pattern. I'd be okay if it didn't have that. If I have enough yarn to do it, that would be a lovely bonus, but I don't have much to play around with, so we'll see what I can get. So I thought I only had the ball that I was working on this first sleeve with, a second large ball to do the second sleeve, and then one ball that was like a half-size ball to do the rest of the body and the bottom ribbing and the neckline. I've since found another small ball that I can use for the bottom and for the neckline. So I'm going to use at least one full ball of those little balls that I've left to finish off the body. I might need a little bit more of it. And then whatever I have left, I will do the collar. And if I can get the collar, the crocheted shell edging, awesome. If I can't, that's okay. But this is where we're at with the romance cardigan. And I'm thinking once I have the first sleeve done and dusted and I know what I want to do for my decreasing, I'm just going to pick up the second sleeve and get that going and get that done, because I would love to have this done probably by mid-September. So I have about maybe 2 months, maybe a month and a half. It really depends on how long it takes me to do the rest of it. But I do know that the shoulder cap goes incredibly quickly, and I was surprised at how quickly the sleeve went. I'm not a sleeve island person. I don't find that sleeves take me too long. In fact, I generally enjoy them more than the body of a sweater, especially when you're going back and forth in flat stockinette. But I do find that this pattern goes fairly quickly, and I am very happy about that. And I don't think I will have any problems getting this done by mid-September, but we'll wait and see. My third WIP is my entry into the knit along that I'm hosting with Hannah of Herb Garden Knitwear. It is my Seaborn tee. So Hannah and I are hosting the HGK Tea Cal, which I'll put on the screen right here. It is Herb Garden Knitwear tea patterns. We have been running it since the 1st of June, and it runs until the 31st of August. So still some time to get in on this knit along. It is just a relaxed knit along. There's no prizes, there's no giveaways. It is just, if you want to join in, join in. You don't need to finish a project. You don't even need to have started the project from scratch. If you already have a WIP that is one of Hannah's tea patterns, just work on that and just post on Instagram and join us in all of the fun. So the last time that I shared this on the podcast, I don't even think I had finished this beautiful shell border, but I have since done a bit more. I've been giving this tea a little bit of love. It is a little tricky to give this one love because this is cotton yarn, and I'm not a cotton knitter for the most part. So I've been getting used to the lack of elasticity. I'm used to nice and stretchy yarns that are wool or acrylic or something like that. And I don't love having to pull yarn from the ball of cotton because it constantly doesn't want to pull, and it just stays like really, really hard and straight. And because I'm holding two strands together, those strands get tangled a lot, and it really bugs me sometimes. So I don't like taking this project anywhere. I prefer to work on this one at home, where I'm using one of my yarn baskets. These are just from IKEA. They're nothing fancy. But having the yarns be able to kind of like float around in the bag makes it easier to pull the yarn for this project. I do remember my last couple of weeks ago, I had a Monday off from work, and I finished off this beautiful shell border that's all done using twisted stitches, twisted ribbing. I finished that off while binging all of season 2 of Bridgerton in one day. I watched all 8 episodes in one day. And the reason that I did that was that I had finished watching part 2 of season 3 over the weekend, and it's not the popular opinion, but I don't like season 3 of Bridgerton. It was not my favorite. In fact, it is the worst season for me. My favorite is season 2. And I kind of wanted to, cleanse isn't really the word, but just sort of like go back to a Bridgerton that I loved and remind myself of how good this show can be. And like one off season isn't going to stop me from watching the rest of it, because I need to see Benedict's season so badly. I love Benedict so much. And I didn't want to be put off of that simply because I didn't like the Pollen episodes. So I took the opportunity to watch that show start to finish, season 2. Did not expect to do that, did not plan to do that. It just kind of happened. And I got into the groove with this beautiful shell stitch bottom. And I just whacked it all out. And I was so happy because once I finished that, I could just go to doing stockinette in the round. Because this, in case you didn't know, is a bottom-up pattern. And yes, I know, I don't often do bottom-up patterns because I have been burned in the past by bad ones that have not fit me until I've gotten to the very end and I try them on and I realize, oh no, this does not work. And by that point, I have lost the mojo for the project and I don't necessarily want to go back to the beginning and start all over again to fix it. That is why I prefer top-down projects, because I can learn pretty quickly the parts that are going to be the most challenging to fit, whether or not they fit me. It's harder to do that with a bottom-up project. But I trust Hannah to do perfectly fitting garments. She offers such an extensive range of sizing, especially for this pattern. This one I think goes up above an 80+ inch bust, which is insane. It's amazing. So if you want a really loose fitting version of this t-shirt, or if you are someone who is quite large busted and you want to make yourself a t-shirt, you can knit this pattern. And I have seen so many beautiful examples of this pattern. When it was in testing, I think 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that's when I first learned about Hannah and this pattern, because Laura Penrose was testing it and I'm a big fan of Laura's. And I just remember being so in awe of all of the different versions of this pattern. People use really unique color choices. I kind of went for one that matches Hannah's second sample, I think, which is the one that she knit during the knit along as well. She used a different color blue. Mine is like a dark teal, and I think she did one that was more of like a navy blue. But we have similar color schemes that we've done our tops in. Hers is now finished. Hannah has really been working on hers all throughout June, and I haven't really been able to give mine as much attention as I wanted to. But it's okay because this is a relaxed cal. This does not need to be done by the end of August. I can work on this for as long as I need. And this one might be a whip that continues into the fall, and I'm okay with that. I'm actually pretty sure it's going to have to continue into the fall, if not later, because I don't think I have enough yarn to finish it. I am using Hobie Cotton King 500 gram cotton cone. So it's a cone of yarn, and I split it in two, and I have wound it all up, and I don't think it's quite enough once I did that. So I need to order more, but the color is currently out of stock. This is color number 2, I think it is. It's milk. So it is a white, but it is a warm white. It's not the very blue undertoned pure white. And this is what works better for my skin tone, and I really love it. And my stripe color, which you can kind of see if I bring it closer, there is a bit of a funny color shade coming in through the window because there are a lot of trees outside my window right here, and it is summertime, so they are lush and full, but the sun beating off of them brings a lot of green light in through this window right now. But I might have the ball in here. Here is my secondary color, which you can now see much better. It's this dark teal color. It does kind of look like it's black or something when it's against the white. But I think once I have more of this and you'll see more of the striping, you'll get a better idea that it is a very dark teal. But I'm very, very happy with my color choices. They're very classic, like mariner style colors. I am just a big fan of this. I really love this, and I'm very excited to get it going. I think I have 5 more sections of the thick white stripe and skinny teal stripe before I do the split for the front and the back. I have been thinking about this pattern actually. Hannah, with her version, modified the neckline to be more like her Tallulah tee, which is her newly released pattern. And it's just, instead of being like a high boat style neckline, it is a round scoop neck with ribbing. And that's kind of made me think about what I want for the neckline. I don't think I want that really high boat neck. I don't think that's going to be something I'll wear very much. I thought about doing the curved Tallulah one because that's what Hannah did, and I can pay attention to what she said she did to modify it, but I don't think that's quite what I want either. So I thought more about it, and I thought, you know what? It would actually be pretty simple to do a V-neck, especially because you're going from the bottom up. You're then going to split your front and your back. Once I've done my armhole shaping and I've gotten that done and I'm just going straight up, I can then split my front in half, just like put a stitch marker in the middle, and just work those front pieces individually and decrease one stitch, one stitch, one stitch as I go up the V-neck. And then I thought, instead of doing ribbing or something like that, because this is such a very bold and beautiful bottom, I don't really want to take much of the attention away from that. I could just do an I-cord or even just a single crochet along that V-neck just to keep it from curling inward. So that's my plan for my Seaborn tee so far, but I'm quite a ways away from doing the front piece, and I've got some other projects that I'm working on right now that I kind of want to give a bit more attention to right now. So this one is not going to be the one that I pull out the most, but one of those other projects, once I get that done, this will come out again and be one of my projects that I focus on. Now it's time for whip number 3, and this does not give me pleasure to do, but I am going to be talking about a pattern that has gone wrong, and I am going to have to say bad things about a pattern. And like I said, that does not give me pleasure. In fact, it actually makes me feel really sad and really disappointed. But I have had basically a train wreck of an experience with this pattern. And if you've been following me on Instagram, you have seen my reel series talking about how this pattern has gone. So if you have seen that, you know what's going to happen next. If you have not seen that, buckle up. We are going to be talking about my beignets tank top, which the last time I showed this in a podcast, I think I had the back done, but I had to rip it out and redo it because I did the increase rate wrong. And then I also had the front section almost done, and I was going to be able to join them in the round once I redid that back section. I've got a lot more done since then, so let's put this on and I will talk you through what went wrong and how I fixed it. Please excuse the mess of ends that are going on behind the scenes, but this is my beignets tank top so far. And the problem with this tank top is that even though the pattern on Ravelry said that it was size inclusive and it went up to at least a 60-inch bust, which is the measure for whether or not a pattern is size inclusive, it's not properly size inclusive because it is not properly graded for larger sizes. So, for context, I am at last measurement a 53-inch bust, I'm pretty sure, and I chose to do size 50.5 inches so that I would have negative ease. And I'm not always a 53-inch bust like many women. I fluctuate depending on the time of the month or even just like what I've eaten that day. Like it's not an exact science. But I wanted to pick a size that would give me some negative ease because I really wanted one of those nice fitted tank tops. And I got gauge. Technically, my gauge is like half of a stitch off, but it didn't bother me enough. In fact, that technically would have made my sample a little bit smaller than the 50.5 inches. My row gauge is technically shorter, so technically speaking, I am getting less length than the sample of the designer. But I am having major issues with this pattern, and I have fixed them for the most part. And this is where it is a really good thing that this is a top-down pattern, because I found those out early on enough that I could fix them, and now I am past them, and I can go on and enjoy working on this pattern just in the round stockinette until I get to the bottom, and then I do a little bit of ribbing, and then I can call this wonderful and be done. So the problem with this pattern is that the length and the width did not work out. So when you're doing your increases, I'm not going to get too involved because I don't want to give anything away that is in the pattern because it is a paid pattern. But essentially, when you're knitting your top sections, your front and your back, you start to do armhole increases so that your armhole comes out in like a swoopy shape. And when I had done all of the recommended increases and I then joined my piece in the round, it then told you to also add X number of stitches in between the front piece and the back piece to give you those underarm stitches. Here is what it looked like when I did exactly what the pattern said. Yeah. That is a nightmare and a half of sizing. Like, it was just an absolute mess. I was ready to cry. I was ready to give up. I was ready to scream. Like, I was ready to do anything because I was so frustrated by this. So I recorded a reel with my genuine reaction to how I was feeling about this pattern after joining the fronts and the backs, after having already reknit that back piece. And I included as the sound bite the Rock Johnson from the revamped Jumanji, where they get to the Jumanji world and he just keeps saying, "Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry," because that's exactly how I was feeling in that moment. It's just, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. We can fix this. It's okay. Don't cry, don't cry. Like, I was trying to like give myself a pep talk saying, it's okay. We can fix this. Don't worry. Don't cry. Because all I felt like doing was crying and screaming and railing about this pattern not working for me. But I'm not going to do that because I did manage to fix this. After I put up that reel, I had a number of good suggestions from lots of really good people on my video. And one of the suggestions, which is the one that I ended up doing, was I went back to where the join was, which was at that point maybe 3 rows, maybe 2 rows. I didn't have much further back to go. And they recommended just taking out the underarm stitches so that instead of having an armhole that went down to here and then also came out to here, it would just come straight down and then it would cinch in the middle where you joined it without any extra stitches. That's what I did first. And honestly, it still looked like a really big armhole. But then I picked up and did my ribbing. And I wanted to do that fairly quickly because I didn't want to then go back and do a bunch of the body, only to come back and do the ribbing on the sleeve and realize, no, that didn't actually do much of a difference after all. And we're talking a lot of stitches that I did not cast on underneath. I was quite surprised by the number of stitches, especially considering how big the armhole already was. And I have since learned from talking with other people who have made this pattern, this is not solely a mistake for the larger sizes. I've actually talked to 2 different people who knit smaller sizes and had the same large armhole problem. So to me, this is just a pattern problem. And I'm really frustrated by that because this designer has a lot of beautiful tank top patterns that I would love to make. But no way am I going to be spending my money on her patterns again because I do not want this same scenario recreated again. Like, no thank you. I'm not going to sign up again. I now know your patterns don't work for me and I don't want to take that risk anymore. So, especially because this is a fairly simple styled tank top. If there are fit problems with something like this, I definitely don't want to know how bad the fit problems would be with a more intricate version of a tank top. So I know for a fact I will not try patterns from this designer again, which is unfortunate because they have a lot of patterns. So to have fit issues and be designing so many patterns, that I can't trust them. I just can't. So anyway, I went back and I did my armhole ribbing, which you can see right here. I only did maybe 1 centimeter because that's all that I wanted and that's all the pattern really recommended. And when I picked up to do my ribbing, instead of following the pickup rate in the pattern, I just picked up every second stitch because the armhole was still quite big. And I thought, you know what, let's play it safe. Let's just pick up every second stitch. That's really easy to do. It's going to cinch it in quite nicely. And as you can tell, it actually did a really good job. There's only like slight puckering, but that's going to come out with blocking easy peasy. So I'm not worried about that at all. I then also picked up for the neckline of the pattern, and I followed the neckline pickup rate in the pattern. And I kind of want to redo it because I thought it would be okay with a wider neckline following the pickup rate of the pattern. But honestly, I don't like it because having that wider neckline makes these straps come out and they kind of go over my shoulder. So like the edge of my shoulder is right here. So it's only coming out by about like 1 inch. But I don't like how that looks on me. I would really much rather it come up here and be right at the edge of my shoulder. And I really need to cinch in the neckline to do that. So I have been thinking, now that I see it on me, and when I did my reel earlier today, I think I'm going to redo the neckline because I'm not happy with that. I would much rather it come up a little higher, kind of like my dress that I'm wearing right now, and come up onto my arm so that it's more in line with my actual edge of the shoulder down to my armpit. I don't want it hanging over like that. So the last time I came on to this podcast talking about a pattern that didn't go well, I did end up contacting the designer. We had a great conversation about the pattern. They took it back to rework it, and I am very hopeful that they're going to release a better version of it. They have been consulting me along the way, asking me my advice and my experience with how my top fit me, and it's been just a great experience overall. I don't think I want to do that this time. And the reason being is that I just don't feel like this designer would be very receptive to that. So the designer of the sweater that didn't work out for me, Alicia Plummer, she was an incredible person to talk to. And I knew from already seeing her in the online community that she is a very receptive person. She's a very kind person. I had people reach out to me and tell me that she is a really great person and would actually want that feedback. I don't know about this person. I don't know anything about them. I don't really see their interactions a lot online. And I worry that I'm going to tell them everything that went wrong with the pattern and it's going to fall on deaf ears. So I'm still thinking about whether or not I'm going to do that, because if other people who have knit this pattern who aren't even the same size as me have had trouble with the sizing, with the fit of the armholes and everything, does she actually want to rework her entire pattern for all of the sizes? Her sample looks so different than what I have. It looks different from other samples that people have made. Like if you look through the patterns or the projects on Ravelry, you see a really big difference. There are people who have a version that looks identical to the pattern sample. You have other versions where the armholes are just almost down to people's waists. They're so big. Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't know if she'd be receptive to any feedback because it looks like there's already been many examples of this pattern not fitting and the pattern hasn't been fixed. So I don't really know if I want to put in the energy of contacting the designer and working on her with that, because I don't think that it will actually change anything. I could be wrong. I could be making an assumption. I really don't know. So I just don't know if I want to put in the time and effort to have a conversation with the designer. I might change my mind. I might not. But at this point in time, I don't know if I'm going to do anything about it. I do know, however, that I'm going to finish this tank top because I love this color. I love this yarn. I think it's going to be a really nice, breezy, and flowy tank. It is definitely not going to be the fitted version that I thought I was going to get. And that's okay. It can still be a fun, nice hot weather tank top to wear because I need more knitwear that is good for the hot months, as I am learning right now when it is very hot outside today. And I don't have many options to wear for knitwear, so I need to make more. I have one last whip to show you, and this whip was absolutely 100% peer pressured in a good way. So if you are not all following the fabulous Knitting Tipsy, she is one of my favorite people to follow on the internet. She is on Instagram, she has a Ko-fi, and she is here on YouTube. And her YouTube is relatively new. It's still picking up traction, so if you want to give her a follow, I highly recommend her. So she posted a video on either the 1st or 2nd of July. I'm recording here on the 14th. It's Bastille Day. And she shared that she is working on a challenge project over the month of July to knit a dress by the end of the month. Yes, she is knitting an entire dress by the end of July, hopefully. And when she shared this on her video, and then we were chatting about it in her Ko-fi on Discord, I said, oh, I love bad ideas. And she's like, you should join me. Come on, do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. So I have joined with Knitting Tipsy in trying to knit a dress in July, but I know for a fact that mine is not going to be completed by the end of July. But I'm thinking to myself, I think I would just love to finish this by the end of the year. So 6 months. Definitely not the 16 days that are left in the month. 17 days maybe. I can't remember if it's 30 or 30 days, has September, April, June, and November, all the rest of 31. Yeah, July has 31 days. So I cannot finish a dress in 17 days when this is all I have. It kind of looks like a little bikini top at this moment, but this is actually the back of it. And these are 2 separate pieces. I haven't joined them yet because this is the early beginnings of the Pillars tank by Claire Jackson of Perfectly Knotted. Claire is a newer designer to me. She's been around for a while, but I've only recently gotten into her patterns more recently because she is fabulous when it comes to size inclusivity and properly sized garments. And I have been chatting a lot with Claire in a Discord that I'm in that is all about size inclusivity. And when Chelsea of Knitting Tipsy told me that she was doing this dress project and that I should get in on it too, and I decided, yeah, okay, fine. It took me a while to find any pattern that I was interested in making. Obviously, I wanted it to be top down because I wanted to work out all of these sizing issues first and then just knit stockinette until the bottom. And I had an idea of how I wanted this dress to look. I actually drew inspiration from Chelsea herself. Chelsea has this red dress, which to me, it is one of the sexiest pieces of clothing I have ever seen. But I wanted a version that would work for me. So obviously first I looked at dress patterns on Ravelry. Not anything struck my fancy. So like I had criteria, right? Needs to be size inclusive. Needs to be top down. Needs to have a V neck, preferably also a V back. Like I wanted to find a pattern that would have that kind of a style because that's what I was looking for with this dress. And I was finding it so hard to find a dress pattern. I didn't find anything that matched my criteria fully. So then I thought, wait, why don't I just pick a tank top pattern and then modify it to be a dress? That's not that hard. You just got to keep knitting and do proper increasing and decreasing to get the fit that you want. Because I am doing a negative ease dress. I want this to be a fitted bodycon dress. I'm currently wearing one right now, and I really want a knitted version in this stunning yarn. So this yarn, you might remember from a couple episodes ago, this is the most precious yarn in my stash, and it is Blue Heron Rayon Metallic yarn in the color Blue Violet. It is yarn that I bought on a trip to New York City with my mom back in like 2016, 2018, like it's been quite a while. And I have 1,100 yards of this yarn. And yes, I could definitely make a t-shirt with that. I could probably even make a t-shirt holding it double if I really wanted to, because I have 2 balls of this and they're 550 yards each. But the more adventurous, more risk-taking part of my brain said, but what if dress? And when Chelsea had that Make a Dress in July challenge video and I watched it, I thought, you know what? I'm going to use that yarn to make a dress. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to do it. So I was looking at tank top patterns that I could then turn into a dress, and Claire's Pillars tank was exactly what I was looking for, and I knew that I could trust her to have a perfectly fitting pattern. Claire's patterns are always super well designed, tech edited, tested. I've seen lots of people my size making them. I know that I have this way of chatting with her through this Discord server that I'm in. I know she's committed to size inclusivity. I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to do it. So of course I chatted to her first. I said, I'm thinking about doing this with your Pillars tank. Do you think that that would work? And she said, oh my gosh, yeah, you could totally do that. And I said, these are the modifications I'm thinking of making to turn it into a dress. And she said, oh my gosh, yeah, that'll totally work. So I have started the Pillars tank dress edition. And I'm so excited about this. So yes, these look like little triangle bikini tops, but these are actually the start of the back. Because you start with your 2 back pieces, then you pick up and knit your 2 front pieces, and then you join everything in the round at the bust. So I'm doing some interesting sizing options with this dress. First of all, Claire's patterns have lots of information about how to choose the right size for you. And she even had a great tip in the pattern about how to choose your size if you are using a plant-based yarn that does not have stitch memory, which is exactly what this is. This is drapey, viscosy, planty yarn. And this is not going to have that really good like cinching effect that you get from a stretchy wool, which is fine because I want this to be a summer garment. So Claire had all kinds of instructions on how to choose the best size for you based on what yarn you're using, what kind of fit that you want, etc., etc. The pattern is recommended to have a 5 to 10% negative fit. And when I was chatting with Claire about like my size and my yarn and everything, she recommended that I use my upper bust measurement. So I have chosen, for the first time ever, to make a pattern based on my upper bust measurement, and then I will add bust darts. Yes, I am scared of doing this. I've never done them before, but anytime I talk to anyone I know who has very well fitted tops, sweaters, you name it, garments that they have knit, they've used bust darts. And I think I am scared for no reason. I think this is going to be one of those things that once you do it, you realize, oh, that wasn't that hard. I should be doing this more often. There is no exact instruction for bust darts, but it tells you where to put them in. So I am going to keep knitting this until I get to the part where I need to do the bust darts. And then because I'm scared, I'm going to put in a lifeline in case I have to go back and redo it again. And I'm going to follow a tutorial about how to get the best bust darts. I cannot remember which one I was looking at, but I will include it down below. So if you are someone who is also looking to do bust darts, hopefully this will help you out. Might have been nerdy knitting, but I'm not quite sure. So I will include it down in the description bar below. But I'm doing a dress and I'm doing bust darts and I'm using my upper bust measurement. Like, this is going to be a bit of a risky project. And based on this being all that I have done so far, I'm not getting it done in July. I am feeling so excited to be using this super precious yarn in what will hopefully be this really, really stellar, standout, look at me kind of pattern. And I'm very, very excited. And I feel like this is what this yarn was waiting to be made into. It's something that I was so scared to use this yarn for so long, and that's why I've never used it until now, because I always worried that I would never find the perfect pattern for it. And I didn't want to, quote unquote, waste it in a pattern that wasn't the best pattern for it. So I'm feeling very brave. I'm feeling very glad that I'm going to be attempting this, but something also just feels so right about this. So let's hope that the next time I show this to you, I will have more of this pattern done. Maybe I'll have those bust darts done. I don't know, but I am very excited to see this take shape, and maybe I'll have a dress by the end of the year. And now time to share a little stash spotlight with you. I have 1 and a bit yarns to show you for my stash spotlight, and that's because I'm going to be sharing a full skein and a mini set. So these yarns are by Handful of Yarn. Her name is Annette. I have been following her on Instagram for quite a while. Annette has been dyeing for only a couple of years. She is a relatively new dyer. She's a very small dyer. She works out of her home and everything, but she does gorgeous colors, a lot of which are fantasy inspired. So her current collection, which I think just wrapped up, I'm not sure if it's still open or not, was all Zelda. So I'm talking about not Zelda Fitzgerald, the Legend of Zelda video game series. So she did a color for every single one of her favorite Zelda games, and I loved them. They were gorgeous. I bought Majora's Mask, which I've never played. I've never played any of the video games. I've only ever watched Doyle, my husband, play Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is still the most beautiful video game I've ever seen in my life. As someone who does not play video games, I absolutely adore it. It is amazing. It is open world. It is beautiful. It has amazing music. Very Miyazaki vibes if you're into Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli and all of that. So anyway, I digress. Annette does all kinds of gorgeous color series. She also did one based on Howl's Moving Castle, which you know is one of my favorite books. They were all colorways based on the book, not the movie. But I have this yarn in my stash because I won a giveaway a few years ago. And that's actually how I learned about Annette. I won this in a giveaway, and it came with another full skein, but I have since used that full skein making the Riptide 135 shawl for a friend of mine. So these were all from her, I think it was her second collection that she did. It was called Beyond the Trench, and the one that I used to make my friend's scarf was called Lunar Reef. These ones, this is Moon Moss. And I just love this greenish gray color. And it does really make me think of moss, and definitely moon moss because there's so much gray to it as well. I just think it's beautiful with all these different speckles. And then I love how well this mini set goes with it. So there are 5 mini skeins. They're all these super dark jewel tones. Oh, they are just stunning. They all have names, but they're not labeled, and I don't remember what they are. But I am planning to use all of these together. I don't remember the name of the pattern, but it is a shawl pattern. I will put it right here. I shared it in my top 20 scarves that are not the Sophie scarf video, and it's one that I think is going to be so lovely, so luscious. I'm just gonna have to play around with my colors a little bit because the pattern sample for that scarf uses the main color both in that one half of it that's just plain, as well as the other half that is striped, and it only uses, I think, 3 colors to stripe, including that main color. But I'm going to be using 5 mini skeins to stripe all along the side, and then the one color here for that one half that's all one color all the way up. So I think that's going to be so gorgeous. They are so soft. I love them so much. I love Annette's yarn. I definitely want to get some more from her in the future, but at the moment I'm trying to cut back on my yarn buying a bit because I bought from quite a few collections this year, and I kind of want to use what I have. I have some really great stuff in my collection, such as these. And if you too want to see my full collection of yarn, I recently hit 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube. It is a huge milestone for me. I was hoping to reach it this year. I was so excited to do that. I did not expect to reach it this quickly, but I did. And I had everybody vote on what kind of a special video they wanted to see to celebrate that. And you all chose a stash tour. So I've been doing these little stash spotlight sections of my podcast all along. You're going to get all of them in one go when I do my video. I don't know when I'm going to get that video up to you. I'm hoping by the end of the summer, but I did just want to say how immensely grateful I am to all of you who are here, subscribing to my channel, watching my videos, sharing, commenting, everything. It just means the world to me, and I am so thankful for that. And I'll be sharing a lot of my yarns with you in an upcoming video as a celebratory video. So I do have a book review for you for the episode because it feels weird to finish off the video without having a book review of the episode. However, I want to preface this by saying I've been struggling with reading lately. I have been picking up and putting down so many books. I have been getting just stacks and stacks of books from the library, trying different things, trying to find something that will engage me, that will draw me in, and I'm just struggling with my reading right now. So I do wonder if my review of this might be impacted by the fact that I've been struggling with reading. So I don't know. I'm gonna review the book anyway. I did not finish it, but I'll talk about that when I review it. So I recently picked up The Twilight Garden by Sarah Nisha Adams. And Sarah Nisha Adams wrote my favorite book that I read in 2022, which was The Reading List. I love that book so much. It's so beautiful. It's so well written. The characters are lovely. The storyline is incredible. I'm just so touched by that book. And Sarah is also a knitter, which is so cool. So when I saw that she had her second book coming out, I was so excited to get it. I immediately put it on hold at my local library, and it came in for me maybe 3 weeks ago. And I thought, okay, maybe this will finally crack my reading slump. Maybe I will just really get into this because I really got into The Reading List. And I loved that it was a very emotional book to read, and it had this beautiful story about human connection through reading books and everything. And I kind of thought that The Twilight Garden would be the same vibe, and it probably is. I just gave up after about 80 pages, maybe 100 pages. And the reason I gave up is that I don't like the characters. And I've spoken on here before that for me, a really big part of my reading experience comes down to whether I like the characters or not. And if I don't like the characters, I tend to not like the book, and I tend to give up on the book. So the reason I don't like the characters is that the premise of this book is that there are two people who live in houses next door to each other that share a garden. And basically, they're just neighbors that don't like each other. And throughout the book, apparently, they start to warm to one another, and they sort of like come together to create this beautiful shared garden, and they realize their differences don't have to separate them, and they can share other things in common. And basically it's supposedly a story about coming to love your neighbor type thing. And when I stopped reading this book, they were only just starting to thaw their relationship. For the first 50 plus pages, they really didn't like each other. It was really rough. There's nothing bad in it, but you could tell that they really didn't like each other, and I don't know, there was just too much of that coming off the page, and I think that was kind of getting to me as well. But I didn't like the characters because neither of them seemed to have any good qualities. So the two characters are Bernice and Winston. Bernice has just moved into the house next door, and she's currently renovating it because it was an older house, and she has a 9-year-old son. And it turns out that she has recently divorced her husband, and she and her son are living here, and she is either a lawyer or something. She's got this really big, powerful job. And she just wants to give her son the most loving and caring life that she can give him because she knows that her ex-husband doesn't really care about him very much. And part of that life is the garden and making sure the garden is safe for him because she doesn't want him to injure himself when he's out there and stuff like that. The other neighbor is Winston, who sounds like he's maybe like mid-30s. He currently works at the convenience store around the corner, and you learn that he used to work in finance and was going pretty high up the ladder, but then he met his now partner, and they were both kind of going up the ladder, and when his partner got a promotion, Winston realized he didn't want to be working under his partner. He wanted to just quit and go do something else. And he ended up choosing to work at the corner store as sort of like an in-between job, but he's found that he really loves the community aspect of it. He's really enjoying the work. But he never sees his partner because his partner is working constantly, always late nights, sometimes on the weekends, and he's barely in the book. Like, at least in the first 80 pages, he's maybe on like 3 pages of the entire book. And you kind of get the suspicion that Winston and his partner Lewis are breaking apart, but neither of them has told the other that they're breaking apart. They're just kind of devolving from a relationship into roommates. And I don't know, it's kind of sad, really. And I guess you could tell that both Winston and Bernice have these bad things happening in their relationships, and they're kind of taking that out on each other through this shared garden. So Winston is mad at Bernice for doing all these renovations that have caused so much ruckus and all of that. And Bernice is mad at Winston because he just seems to dump stuff in the garden, or he's digging holes and not filling them in. And she thinks that that's dangerous for her son. And they're just really at odds. And by the time I got to 80 pages in, like I said, they were only just starting to thaw their neighborly relationship. And it seemed like they were starting to come together. But then the author throws in this other story about these other 2 neighbors from the 1970s who also had a frosty relationship that then thawed, and they created this beautiful welcoming garden. And it's kind of like you have to split your interest between the 2 characters in the modern day, Winston and Bernice, and then these other characters in the 1970s, and you just don't really know where to put your attention. It's splitting your focus too much as a reader, and there is a slight connection between them, but I still hadn't flushed that out by the time I gave up on this book. And I don't know, I think I was disappointed because I wasn't getting the same experience story-wise that I got from the reading list. And that's unfair of me to put that on the author to provide the exact same type of reading experience. It's a different book. I can't expect it to be exactly the same as her first book. So I think I was kind of disappointed in that, and I kind of stuck with this book longer than I probably would have because I was hoping to have that same experience. And who's to say if I had have kept going with it, I would have had that experience, but I hadn't had it yet, and I've been struggling with my reading anyway, so I stopped reading this book. I have since picked up another book, but I'm only like maybe 10 pages into it, so I can't really review that one yet. Time will tell if I even stick with it. But reading's been kind of difficult lately. I DNF'd a book from an author that I love, and I'm kind of sad about that. But that's just what my reading is like today. And that wraps up episode 25 of the Knitted by Whitney podcast. Thank you so much for sticking around with me as I have bemoaned projects that have issues and talked about some exciting new plans that are going to be coming up, and everything is really up in the air right now. Nothing is really at a completed state. I don't think anything is necessarily close to being completed. Maybe the beignets tank top, but really I'm still working on these projects. It's okay that it's going to take a while to finish them. I don't have to have finished objects every time I do this podcast. It matters that I have things to tell you about the items that I'm working on. And especially with my projects today, I really wanted to share these thoughts with you because it has been a roller coaster. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. While you're here, it would help my channel if you would like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified about my latest videos. Thank you again so much for helping me reach 5,000 followers. I am so grateful and so excited about this. And I'm going to be working on that stash tour video. Hopefully it'll be out by the end of the summer, but we'll see how I get along with that. I also wanted to point out that if you would like to give me a tip, I have a link to my Ravelry wish list in the description box below. Absolutely no pressure, but if you would like to, I do have patterns there that you could purchase for me. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all take care and happy knitting!